Okay,
Are we live?
we're live.
Yeah.
Okay, should we wait for Bill until we go into closed?
Yes. Oh, he's looking for the invitation. Tina, is it possible for you to, oh, let me see if I can forward this to him. Tina, I need you to send it to the open. Can you do that? Because I can't, I already started this.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, he's in the closed session. So I think that's fine, right? Mayor? Bill's
Sorry.
already in the closed session.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's fine. Then let's just kick this off.
Okay. Okay, so this meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act with the annual notice advertised in the Trenton Times, provided to the Hunterdon County Democrat, the Trenton Times, the posting of the meeting agenda on the bulletin board at City Hall, on the city's website at www.lambertvillenj.org, on the exterior door of the elevator entrance at City Hall, and was sent to department heads and to people on the listserv. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting were emailed through the city's listserv, provided on a call-in message at City Hall. This session is being recorded using Zoom and will be posted to the city's website after we download it. We ask for people's patience. It's been taking 4 to 5 days. So we need a motion to go into closed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We should note the purpose for which we're going.
Thank you. Yep, it is to go into close to discuss litigation involving the city pursuant to NJSA 40:4-12B7.
Do we need to vote again?
Nope, you're all set. We just had to mention why we were going into closed.
Okay, so we're going to leave this meeting ahead to the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Attendees. So we'll start the meeting in earnest at 7:05. All right, folks, for those of you who just joined, just want to let you know, we are going to start our meeting in earnest at 7:05. This gives everybody time to make sure that they can sign in and they don't miss anything, any of the exciting beginning stuff. So we're going to wait another 5 minutes and start at 7 o'clock. Tina, you can remove the closed session as it is now officially 7. Thanks so much.
Mayor, just wanted to take a minute to remind you to pick up your box for the flu clinic.
I appreciate that. I have a reminder on my phone to ensure that I don't forget.
And did you receive the email today with the nurses' phone numbers? You're
I
all set? I gave them directions. You should be good as gold.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I also got their home addresses for their thank you notes afterwards. So
Wow, you really got
we're
it
all
together.
covered.
Way to go. I didn't doubt you. Picking up the box may be, but
Fair enough.
I'm just teasing.
I have a wedding at 11 tomorrow, so I'll pick it up afternoon.
Nice.
Oh, a lot of September weddings.
A lot, right?
Tina can attest to that.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's my anniversary.
Hey, Mazel.
Anniversary. How
10
many years?
years.
10. Nice. Nice. Well, congrats.
Thanks.
It's a milestone.
It is.
Yeah.
It feels like 10 days.
Well, that's good, right?
I guess so.
Be
Yeah.
far worse if you're just like, feels like 10,000 years.
Yeah, it's true.
Just marching towards death, you know.
That's how I feel about the rest of my life.
Oh my gosh.
For those of you who are just joining us, again, we're going to start our meeting at 7:05, just to ensure everybody's got a chance to log on.
So I don't know who you married a couple of days ago. Maybe it was last weekend, but they were so excited and so appreciative.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
They
had
were
3 weddings last weekend.
Did you?
Yes,
Wow. You were a busy beaver.
I know.
Yeah. Well, they
I've done my part for the institution, I'll say that.
It was the older couple, and they're so looking forward to coming back and having lunch with you.
Yes, they were starstruck. They were so happy.
were.
It was a very nice wedding.
That's cool. We love hearing that.
Cindy, I might actually have more marriages this year than Mary Melfi.
Really?
We are in a year-to-year competition to see who gets more marriage requests.
That's great. She gets a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He beat me pretty handily last year, but I think this year, because our offices have been closed, I have a shot.
I think you do. Yeah. Well, and last year was a wonky year. You know, our marriages were down last year. You know, we typically do, and I want to say 28, and it's just around 30 a year. And last year was not a record year for that.
So I can blame the year instead of
Yes, you can.
lack of interest.
You can.
All right. I'm officially receiving requests for to host people's marriages now on text. So we know that we've got some people watching at least.
That's great.
All right, guys. So I think at this point, let's get kicking. We've already read the statement of compliance. So we are out of closed session. So can we do a roll call?
Councilman Sanders.
You
Yeah.
are muted, Councilman.
There we go. Sorry, here.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Tina, Bill has an issue. Can you see if you can fix his video?
I can hear
Councilman-
and talk. I just can't start my video.
Okay. Councilwoman Taylor,
Here.
Councilwoman Irvish,
Here.
Council President Sarah,
Here.
Mayor Fall.
Here.
Great. All present.
Bill, would you mind reading the statement of compliance regarding council session?
Based on the public health emergency caused by the COVID-19 virus, the state of New Jersey and the city of Lambertville have taken necessary action to ensure the continued regular operation of government. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, formal action by the governing body must be taken in public at a meeting that is adequately noticed to invite public participation and maximum transparency. Such requirements are not set aside during times of emergency, and therefore the city and its governing body must proceed with conducting these necessary meetings in accordance with state law and in a manner that ensures optimum transparency. The city will utilize Zoom video conferencing, which also provides a dial-in feature if residents would prefer to participate by phone rather than video, as well as teleconferencing for those who wish to connect by phone only. The city will continue to rely on procedures currently in place for public comments directed to city officials during all meetings. There will be no change to the city's public comment policy for virtual meetings. The city at all times will act within the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act for meetings conducted during this public health emergency so that the city government can continue to provide services to the community and the public can continue to participate and provide comments without interruption.
Mayor, we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance, a moment of silence.
Thank you. Can I ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask that you remain standing for all of those who've served in our nation's military, both at home and abroad, and for all of those who are fighting on the COVID-19 front lines. Thank you. Okay, as we discussed in our working session at the beginning of September, we've had a series of requests from residents to try and reduce the total time that these meetings go. They have started to lapse into 4 and 5 hour long meetings, which is onerous for the members of the public who want to participate until the end, particularly due to our previous policy on public comment, which limited public comment to only the item at hand until the end. So as a compromise, we are at this time going to experiment with using public comment at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting, and then only hearing public comment on on the second hearing of ordinances. Otherwise, you can say your public comment at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, and otherwise the council will just be moving through the agenda. I want to note here that I have some concerns about this policy change because I think that it's important for the public to hear the council deliberate in advance of making a comment about any particular action, but I'm willing to give this a shot, as there were several residents who had reached out with this interest. So with that, Tina, I'm going to ask, let's see here. I'm going to ask that
Can I ask
you.
a question first?
Oh, yes.
Sorry,
Councilwoman, go
so
ahead.
I might have misunderstood. I was under the impression that the public comment we're about to go into was specifically if the public wanted to speak on things that we'll be voting on. So they could give their input prior to our discussion, not just like any sort of public comment.
So we can put a a restriction on, this is, an experimental change in the way in which we conduct our meetings. I am fine to put a restriction on just 2 voting items at the beginning, and that general public comment will remain sort of open for all comments at the end. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that's what we had agreed to. That's what I would be in favor of, but I don't want to enforce that for now if that wasn't everyone else's understanding.
Well, the one thing that I'll just say is part of my thought process in wanting to have this move up is that there were some members of the public that had comments on something that maybe wasn't on our agenda, but they wanted to bring to our attention, and they were having to wait until like 11 o'clock at night and having a hard time getting it in. So I don't know if this sort of addresses that concern, but I also take your point in wanting to have it a little bit more focused. So I don't know. Maybe we could take public comment on it.
I mean, my only concern is if we get, public comment can take us anywhere. We don't know where that could take us, and then that might prevent us from getting to the agenda in a timely manner.
Right.
I suppose hearing public comment and not getting into lengthy back and forths may help us achieve both goals, but I'm open to
Can I make
I
a
do-
suggestion?
I'm sorry, Councilman. Do you mind if I respond to that briefly? I think the agreement at the last council meeting was that we would not, unless the statement made in the public hearing was blatantly false. So other than sort of just like a blatant misstatement of fact, that we would not comment on any of the public comment, that we would just take it and then incorporate it into deliberation as it's needed. Councilman, if you want to add to that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it seems like there's 2 buckets here, right? There's the people that may want to talk about something on the agenda, and then people that may want to talk about some other matter. I'm sensitive. My understanding was the same as Councilwoman Urbish's. We didn't want, if somebody wanted to ask some question, it was irrelevant. They didn't want to wait until 11:30 to raise it. Maybe we could just start with the agenda items that people have comments on, address those, see how far we get, and then open it up to general comments.
I'm fine with that. Ultimately, I think the question here is it worthwhile to be slightly more restrictive about how public comment is going to work in this particular instance? I would say, since this is a trial period, I'd like to leave this relatively open. And then before we start to make any edits at all, see how this goes. And then we can discuss this in the next working session and start to tweak or edit if this is cumbersome.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, so with that, Council President Becerra, did you have any comment?
Nope.
Great. With that, Tina, would you mind reading the public comment thing?
Sure. Participation by computer. If you are currently utilizing a computer to participate, you would click the raise hand button on the bottom of the screen. This will place you in a queue that I can see for when it is time to take public comment. People are sorted in the order in which they raise their hands. When I call on you, a message will pop up asking if you want to unmute yourself. If you choose to move forward and place a public comment or question, choose to unmute. And if you change your mind, then choose deny. Participation by phone. If you are dialing in tonight on your phone, to avoid having your number displayed on screen, first dial *67, then the meeting phone number, followed by the meeting identification number. Your phone number will not be displayed. To raise your hand, dial *9 to be placed in the queue. When called on, the system will ask you to confirm being unmuted to proceed. You will be asked to state your full name and address into the record. Then please feel free to make your comment or ask a question. You will remain unmuted while the governing body responds. Please make sure there's no background noise, such as TV, music, loud chatter. When public comments are finished, participants will be placed back on mute for the duration of the meeting. Members of the governing body will raise their hands to make a comment or ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, so at this time, if you have any general public comment or public comment about any of the particular action items, raise your hand and you'll be called on by the team.
Lauren, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
Hi, yes, this is under Lauren Baldessari, and this is Anthony Petraglia. This is the homeowner of 91 Swan Street in Lambertville. And the reason why I really appreciate everybody's efforts allowing this this open forum. My concern is just I have for being a homeowner is I live by a very abandoned home, and it's very overwhelming and concerning of some of the activity that's going on over there. And I guess I just wanted to bring up that concern to everybody because it's certainly not a very good look for the town. And, you know, I guess it's just concerning as a homeowner, and I just would like to see what we could do, or if there is any, I guess, advance that I could do as a, you know, part of the area of what we can do. I'm sorry about that. I'm a little nervous.
No, you're doing great.
Sorry.
So thank you for your comment.
Sure.
We can follow up with you and our construction office about the home at another time.
Okay.
We appreciate you flagging it with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do I leave now?
Any other question or comment? We're not seeing any other raised hands here for open public comment. Sandra
Thank you,
Harris.
everyone. Sandra, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your question.
Sandra Harris, 28 Swan Street. I just have a couple of questions. So one is about the alcoholic beverage licenses. In particular, what is a pocket license and what type of establishment uses a pocket license? And then the second is, I see that we're working at our shared services agreements and somebody is going to pay $70,000. It's not clear to me from reading it whether that's the Flemington contribution or the Lambertville contribution. So I'm just looking for clarity there. And also I'm curious about how the time is going to split. I mean, I understand that these things will be fluid, but going into it, are we thinking this person is splitting his or her time equally? Is it 2-3? What kind of scenario are we envisioning? Thank you.
Mayor, would you like me to handle the pocket license?
I can handle both. Sorry, I just want to ask, does the council want me to wait until all public comment is heard, or should we address these individually?
I mean, I think that they're relatively
Yeah.
straightforward questions, but I also know that, you know, we're trying to, this is hard. I don't know what the best.
Yeah, I don't know either. Sandra, I'll answer your questions and we'll sort of continue to work this out. So a pocket license is a license holder that doesn't have an establishment, but maintains their alcoholic beverage license. So no organization or establishment type uses that type of license. They own a license. They don't have an establishment to actually sell alcoholic beverages. And I recommend that and then in terms of the agreement with the shared service agreement with Flemington, the agreement is that Flemington will pay $70,000 up to $70,000 for the business administrator, and our time split will be 25 hours in Lambertville, 15 hours in Flemington, with the understanding that there's flex time based on projects and need.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So is this pocket license an unusual kind of a thing? I mean,
no, they exist all over the state. It is a quirk of the alcoholic beverage, rules and regulations in the state of New Jersey.
But not one that's something that someone can easily get, I presume.
No, because there are only a set number of licenses in the state per municipality, and once you've hit that max, then they can only be sold or traded.
Oh, so it's an asset someone's holding.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Hansen.
Matthew, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Matt Hansen, 105 Douglas Street. I just wanted to publicly thank the Department of Public Works for filling the potholes on Douglas Street and around Cottage Hill. I did email, and Mayor Fall forwarded it to the Department of Public Works, but I just wanted to thank them for their work in getting those potholes filled. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll move into the rest of the agenda. So, Council President, I'm going to kick this over to you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the following sets of minutes: August 20th open and closed, and also the September 1st work session. Could I get a motion to approve those minutes or edit them?
So moved.
I'll do second.
Did you get that, Cindy? All right, so if you could do a roll call, please.
Councilman Sanders? Councilwoman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilwoman Urbish?
Yes.
Council President Sarah?
Yes.
Mayor Fall?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to move on to the bills list, and I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the bills list as it was provided to us.
So moved.
Councilman, I'll take the second.
All right, if you could do a roll call, please, Cindy. Thank you.
Councilman Sanders?
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilwoman Urbish?
Yes.
Council President Sarah?
Yes.
Mayor Fall?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to move on to the resolutions. We have a consent agenda for resolutions 108 through 115. And I don't know if the council has any questions or want to have any discussion, or Mayor, if you want to have any discussion on these, or are folks comfortable to go ahead and do a consent agenda for all of those?
I'm going to ask that we pull 115 at this time. We're not internally prepared to make that resolution final. So I'm going to ask that our consent agenda only be 108 through, I believe, 114.
14. Yep. Does anyone have any questions on those resolutions tonight? No, everyone's all right? All right. So I'd like to go ahead and ask for a motion to move and adopt resolution numbers 108-2020 through 114-2020.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. Go ahead and do a roll call if you would, please, Cindy.
Councilman Sanders?
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilwoman Urbish?
Yes.
Council President Sarah?
Yes.
Mayor Fall?
Yes.
So, Mayor, I'll move on to resolution number 116. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
All right. It's a resolution to authorize the shared services agreement with the town of Clinton as lead agency for an interim business administrator for 10 hours per week at a monthly fee of $4,500. Mayor, I didn't know if you have any comments.
Sure. So we have reached out to multiple different business administrators throughout the county of Hunterdon to do a small scope of work based mostly around the preparation of the budget for 2021, as well as for some basic finance and management projects within the city. This would be a really narrow scope and would functionally account for the exact same hourly rate as our former business administrator was paid. I feel strongly that we are right now losing daylight, as they say, on some of the really important budget setup that we need to do in order to be able to have another a series of public hearings on our budget before the end of the year. So Rich Phelan, who is the current business administrator in Clinton, is widely respected by members of his community, by the mayor, as well as we have a significant number of overlap between our professional contracted workers. This is sort of a stopgap measure because we expect that it will take us several months, as it did during 2019, to fill the business administrator's position with the right choice. And it has been made clear to me by the governing body that we should indeed take the fulfillment of that position really, really seriously. So that's the functional context of this agreement. If we pass this tonight, Clinton will pass that, I believe, in the first or second week of October, and we can move forward on utilizing Mr. Phelan's services on an ad hoc basis for about 10 hours a week.
I think it's a great opportunity for us and very well negotiated. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Council
it's a
President.
great
Councilman Sanders.
Yes, Mayor, I think you said this. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. So the rate was determined off of our current business administrator or our former business administrator's sort of an hourly rate is what you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. So we calculated his non-benefit hourly rate, and that's the hourly rate that we came to for Mr. Phelan.
Okay. And then the other part is I don't know Mr. Phelan. I certainly have high regard for the mayor there, and I've always understood it to be a well-run city. So, but you're the one that's going to have to be working with this person most closely. Have you spent any time with him?
Over the phone.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's
COVID-19. But yes, we've had multiple conversations about sort of the scope of work as I see it. I expect that between now and when the town of Clinton passes this, goes to pass this shared service agreement, that we'll have some onboarding conversations with both Mr. Phelan and Cindy, as well as him and Sue, as they will be the two people who will be his real point person. And he will be working diligently, specifically with them, to ensure that we're on the right track towards our 2021 budget.
And his intention, or he's going to go back to full-time then for Clinton after the termination of this agreement. That's the expectation.
Yes, and he is still working full-time at Clinton. This is 10 hours over his 40-hour week.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
But the reason we wanted to do this through a shared service agreement is because we were advised that this is legally the sort of the cleanest way to do this, but also because if he takes a call during business hours when he's on Clinton's time, he wants to have an agreement so that he's not wasting any public funds. Councilwoman Erbish.
I think that this is a good interim step. I know the staff have taken on even more sort of in this period of not having a business administrator on staff, and the budget is really, really important. So I'm glad that that is not also going to be on their shoulders on top of everything else. So I'm glad that we have someone coming on to help get that set up well, so that when we do have someone come in, that the foundation is laid.
Yeah, and I do want to note here, and thank you for sort of teeing that up for us. Cindy and Sue and really everyone in City Hall has taken, the transition really, really well, and brought a huge amount of work back onto their plates. And we have, while we have had to make some cuts in terms of what we are focusing on over the last several months, we haven't missed a beat on all of our statutory requirements, everything that the city does to ensure that we're providing service to residents every day. So I want to thank everybody in City Hall for being such good team players, but it's time for us to start to get to the next step here. Okay, any other questions? Then with that, Council President, would you call the question?
Yeah, I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt resolution number 116-2020.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And Cindy, if you could do a roll call.
Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor,
Yes.
Councilwoman Urbish,
Yes.
Council President Asaro,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes.
All right, so on a similar subject, we've got resolution number 117, which is officially a resolution to authorize the shared services agreement with the Borough of Flemington for the position of business administrator for 15 hours per week at an annual fee of $70,000, with the city of Lambertville serving as the lead agency. So essentially us sharing borough administrator with the Borough of Flemington. So Mayor, I'll let you make some comments about that.
Certainly. So
Change, Mayor, that would be up to 70,000. If I heard you earlier, correct? We should just make sure we amend.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, with that amended. Got it, up to.
Thank you. So this is this is the second time that we're introducing this concept. We had discussed this at length in the working session. While there is an incredible amount of work to be done, far more than 40 hours a week for a full-time business administrator in the city of Lambertville, it seems clear that we would not be able to fill the position adequately with the total salary range that we were willing to spend. So in order for us to be able to find somebody who's got the correct amount of experience and is the right fit for the job, we went out to the market with, again, we had discussions with several other municipalities and landed on a good compromise solution with the Borough of Flemington, who is also creating this position for the first time because of significant need. And so we've negotiated this shared service agreement. It's already passed in the Borough of Flemington, and if this passes tonight, we will go into our next round of interviews with our business administrator candidates, looking for somebody who's going to be a good fit for the city of Lambertville. And then once we've decided on one or two final candidates, then the Borough of Flemington will also have a crack at interviewing those folks. So that's sort of the basic next steps. Does anybody have any questions about the structure of this agreement? Okay. Council President, can I ask you to call the question?
Sure, of course. I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt resolution number 117-2020.
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman. Cindy, if you could please call the question. I'm sorry, roll call.
It's all good. Councilman Sanders,
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor,
Yes.
Councilwoman Urbish,
Yes.
Council President Asaro,
Yes.
Mayor Fall.
Yes.
All right, so our last resolution of the evening is number 118-2020. Resolution to adopt the accessory apartment manual prepared by Triad Associates for affordable housing as required in the settlement agreement with Fair Share Housing. And I know we all got that manual. I will tell you, I have not read through the whole thing. But Mayor, do you have any summary comments about that?
Just that this is a mandatory portion of our Fair Share Housing Agreement settlement, that this is the next step of us fulfilling our responsibility to the court. It was prepared by our third-party contracted workers who, fulfilled a public RFP process and excelled, and then was also overseen by our city planner, Emily Goldman. I feel confident that this is standard language that is used in almost all of these handbooks and is based off of the Fair Share Housing standard across the state.
So just for further explanation, just quick, I'll give a definition of accessory apartment. It's a self-contained residential dwelling unit with a kitchen, sanitary facilities, sleeping quarters, and a private entrance, which is created within an existing home or through the conversion of an existing accessory structure on the same site. Of course, there's a longer explanation, but just so folks-
Better
we have
known as
that.
a mother-in-law suite.
There you go.
Although if I'm trying actively not to call it that in case my mother-in-law decides she wants to come and live here. All right, so with that, are there any other questions or comments regarding the handbook? Okay, I do want to take a moment to commend Emily for helping manage this project through to the end in order to guarantee that we were on time and continuing to be compliant. Okay, can we call the question?
Yes, I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt resolution number 118-2020. Can I get a motion, please? Thank you.
Second.
Who
That
made
was
the
Councilwoman Taylor and then Urbish, Cindy. If you could do a roll call, please.
Councilman Sanders?
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor?
Yes.
Councilwoman Urbish?
Yes.
Council President Sarah?
Yes.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
All right, so that's the end of the resolutions. We don't have any first reading for ordinances or second readings or public hearings. So Mayor, it's back to you for boards and commissions.
Great, excellent. I want to make two announcements here. First, starting in November, beginning of November, Council President Acero and I will be managing the reappointments of our boards, committees, and commissions. If you are here on a Thursday night, you probably are somebody who should be volunteering for the city of Lambertville. So you should take a look at our committees, commissions, and boards and send us your resume with your interest in how you'd like to be plugged in to volunteering for the city of Lambertville. We'll be reviewing that. Last year we had a record number of people apply for those positions. I'm hoping to see even more this year. So I'm looking forward to connecting folks into potentially open positions. That being said, we had we're filling an unexpired term on the Environmental Commission. Lindsay Hanshey, sorry, Lindsay in advance, is going to be filling that spot. She is a grant writer, which is always great to have on these boards. She's also agreed to take over the management of the TREX program and be the coordinator for the river cleanup, which was last weekend. So she's already started volunteering with the Environmental Commission, and now we're just going to make a more formal position. So does anybody have any questions about Lindsay?
That sounds great.
Great. Okie dokie. So with that, can I get a motion to appoint?
So moved.
Second.
Council President Acero, Councilwoman Urbish, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we're going to do a couple of quick updates. Before we get to the general council updates, and since we are zinging through this agenda, I do want to talk about two potential discussions that I was going to save for our October 4th meeting, but our October 4th meeting's agenda is stacking up really quickly. So I'd like to discuss them here unless there are significant concerns. Okay. The first is that I'd like to consider and propose that we more formally landmark some of our historic city buildings. I've been in conversation with members of the Historic Preservation Commission and the State Historic Preservation, I want to say commission, but
Office, SHPO.
SHPO, thank you. The State Historic Preservation Office. The City of Lambertville, while our Historic Preservation Commission has done an incredible job over the last 20 years of making the city a historic destination, there are some specific protections that we can provide to some of our historic buildings. in particular, what's called landmark legislation. So we could identify buildings that are historic landmarks within our community, and then beyond our already very strict tear down laws that exist in the city, there would be an extra layer of regulatory protection over those buildings, so that any before they go to planning or zoning board for any significant site changes, those changes and plans would actually be run through the Historic Preservation Commission in town first. Now, this is a controversial piece of legislation because it does mean that for the buildings that we identify as historic landmarks, it puts an extra burden of both public hearings and of regulation in the city. This was something that we had discussed January and February of this year. Just feels like last year. January and February of last year as a part of the community development fair. And so this notion was originally brought to us by Lisa Easton and Lou Tobos, who are both active members of the Historic Preservation Committee. I think it is worth discussion because in particular, I think that there's been a lot of misinformation spread through the community about, historic buildings being torn down or redeveloped into monstrosities. That's certainly is not something that I would like to see happen during my time in the city of Lambertville. And I think that there's some, we have a really excellent and active Historic Preservation Commission with a lot of experts in the field who could ensure that both the Lilly Mansion and City Hall, no matter who maintains the deed on those buildings, that the city has direct oversight about any redevelopment or work done on those buildings. So with that, I'd like to open that up for discussion.
One question that I have is, would this type of designation be done on privately held property? And if so, what is the owner's role in that? Or would this simply be done on publicly owned buildings?
So my recommendation at this point is to only move the landmark legislation forward on both the Lilly Mansion and City Hall. However, this Historic Preservation Commission has in the past tried to designate landmark status for other privately owned buildings. It is possible it has to be done through council action, and I would hope in coordination with the building owner.
Right. Okay. And then the Historic Commission has recommended this approach for the Lilly Mansion and City Hall.
So the Historic Preservation Commission has not given us a formal recommendation. I've worked with members to sort of to discuss this particular idea over the last 9 months as we've been working on thinking through our what the redevelopment of the city looks like. The whole reason that we decided to include historic preservation and historic preservation as an economic driver in both of the community development fairs was because the ultimate goal was to make sure that we were protecting buildings that are jewels of our community, and the Lilly Mansion in particular certainly is one. And so, this is one means of providing that protection beyond the very strict tear down laws that we have in this community. It just provides, one more layer of protection.
I think that it's definitely worth exploring and sounds like it could be a good solution. I think I would want to hear from the Historic Commission, and maybe they can also explain all that is entailed and all of the protections that provides to the council. And I think it would probably also be instructive to the public. So maybe it sounds like our upcoming early October meeting is pretty full, but maybe the following one, we could have the Historic Commission and whoever the appropriate person is on sort of like the statutory legal side of things, give us a presentation on what this all looks like?
Absolutely. I wanted to have this conversation. As I had said previously, I was hoping to do this in the working session, but our working session is going to be a very long meeting next, whatever, in 2 weeks. So instead, I thought I would float this now. And if there seems to be a general interest from the council, then I will go and make a presentation to the Historic Preservation Commission and make a request that they deliberate and give us a formal recommendation. Council President?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to go ahead and ask them to do that. The only thing that I would add to that, maybe when you speak to them, is maybe they probably would do this anyway, but explicitly I would say to look into exactly maybe other examples of towns like ours that maybe did this overlay and this additional protection, just to see, kind of what the problems might have been or what the upside might have been, just so that we can head that off.
Sure. I mean, I will say, a lot, there is pushback. This is not an uncontroversial decision to make, because Lambertville is all, even though we have added efficiencies in the last 19 or 20 months in our planning and zoning and construction office. Lambertville is not known for being quick to approval. And so adding another regulatory board that has oversight beyond the two land use boards, it creates a higher watermark and more cost for anybody who would be considering to adaptively reuse those spaces. Councilwoman Taylor.
Yeah, I just want to second what Councilwoman Erber said. I think it's really important that we, language tends to get messy around historic preservation, and so we need to get very clear so that people understand. So almost the entire city, save the hills, is part of a national historic district already, and the federal designation provides essentially no protection. So then we need to understand what happens at the state level with SHPO, what happens at the local level, because there are varying degrees of designation and restrictions. So I'm fully in support of this, especially for the two properties that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Anybody who wants to come in and redevelop those can deal with a little extra oversight, frankly.
Agreed.
And so I don't think this is a very controversial decision for these two properties as it stands. So, but as we progress in these conversations, giving people the baseline of what the levels of designation and the restrictions are, I think would be helpful.
Yes, and to that point, and I think that's very doable. In fact, I got a really digestible memo from SHPO regarding the difference, which I'm happy to share with the Historic Preservation Commission, and they can make that a part of their report. But as we were discussing this in, I don't know, February or March or whenever that was, the designation of local landmark is sort of the highest bar of protection. This, as you had mentioned, Lambertville is already a historic district, but the local landmark designation does provide quite a bit more protection. So again, I'm happy to provide, to go to the Historic Preservation Commission and make a formal request that they study this and make a recommendation. Okay, any other questions on that? Great. Okay, moving on. Councilwoman Erbish, you had mentioned something to me that was not on the agenda. Would you mind?
Yeah, just briefly, and don't need to necessarily solve it tonight, but just thinking through a little bit with Public Works, it's great that they were able to get some of the potholes taken care of. I know that they have a long list, and are often faced with challenging circumstances that make them fall behind on that list. And so I think one thing that maybe we can think critically about and get some feedback from the community or whatever is maybe the street sweeping schedule. It's been a constant source of sort of consternation and confusion on all sides of the issue from the public, either street sweeping not enough or too much, or the ticketing or whatever the case may be. And also, frankly, it's the first thing to be dropped when there is an issue with staffing or equipment or another more urgent matter comes up. And then that can be confusing for residents not knowing when it's happening and moving their car and then it not happen. So I just think it is worthwhile when something seems to not be working super well to figure out maybe if there's a better way for it to work, and possibly moving to a non-weekly schedule on street sweeping. Maybe it's a first and third week of the month. I know that that could have its own challenges with people being able to keep track. So I understand that that's not necessarily a perfect solution, but I think it's something that we should sort of explore. And I would love to hear from Lester about this. I haven't had a chance to talk to him, so I also don't want to get out in front of him if that's even doable or if that makes sense, if it works with the equipment. But I want to put it out there as something that we should try to work through, because I feel like we keep hitting our heads against the wall on this, and there's got to be a better way to manage it.
If I could chime in, thank you for that, Councilwoman Urbish. I agree. I think there's frustration now, especially because parking. There's a lot more people working from home, so there's fewer places to try to jump to the other side of the street in the morning. It's especially frustrating when you search, and I've heard this from neighbors, only to find that the street sweeper didn't come that day. So yeah. I do want to be mindful. I believe that the stormwater management program includes this as part of it. So we also have signage. So there's a change that could be expensive if we have to change signage. But at a minimum, I think maybe some sort of notice program or something where folks have a better read on when they have to move their cars is a really good idea. So I support re-looking at this too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this was something that I brought up in the Lambertville Matters letter from last quarter, is that we've done a really incredible job this year in particular of increasing the total number of folks on the email listserv, folks on our Swift 911, but we don't utilize those technologies to their fullest extent. And now part of that is because lack of bandwidth within the city, and part of it I think is because we haven't really thought through a better comprehensive noticing comprehensive noticing plan where we're defining our goals and what we would like people to know and when and how. There are municipalities who have, road closure texts that go out by block, right? That's just, right now, that's not technologically beyond our capabilities. It is, but it is not something that we are doing. So even when we have advance notice of, the street sweeper not running or garbage pickup being delayed, there's really, it's not that we don't have the capability of having, those zones that are affected noticed. The issue is really that we don't have a comprehensive plan of action. And it's something that I would like to dig my teeth into over the next several months. But it sort of gets pushed to the bottom of the barrel there.
Yeah. No, I think that those are both really good. I think the idea of the communication and noticing people is really key. I think that that's probably like the hot spot for frustration. And then, your Councilman, your point on the stormwater management program, I mean, keeping the streets clean is a really important sort of first line of defense in stormwater management. So I definitely take that to heart. I think, I think that this is a fixable problem if we can spend a little time on it. And I would certainly welcome if there's residents out there that have ideas on this or have worked in logistics and want to share some of that knowledge. I think we would really welcome the help on it.
I mean, the other positive effect, and Council President, I'll get you next. The other positive effect of this would be that we, the amount of wear and tear we put on our street sweeper that's already relatively old and never, reliant because of how much wear we put on it. Reducing the total number of times that we are cleaning out the grates would be helpful. Council President.
Yeah, so given the popularity of this topic, I actually had two separate residents talk to me about some options, which may or may not be popular, but right, we've got to throw them out there. So first one is privatize. Hire a company that this is what they do, and they can do downtown, and maybe they can do up on the hill. And I know we have a lot of stormwater and drain issues up there, block drains. That's number one, is privatize. Free up Public Works to do well other things, right? The other thing is shared services. Someone pointed out to me that New Hope, they have a street sweeper that goes around their downtown. Of course, probably West Amwell does not, and I would think maybe Stockton does or does not, I don't know. But possibly a shared service or a contract with New Hope to just bring their sweeper across and work with us. So those are just some more kind of out of the box options that I was provided.
I actually have a call into Larry for tomorrow for Mayor Keller on another issue. I am happy to ask him about who runs and manages their street sweeper program, and look into it.
Especially given the amount of money we think we spent, or should spend maybe on updating the sweeper and upkeep for that. The maintenance on it can be huge.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
Cool. Okay. All right. Any other comments on the street sweeper? Moving right along, I just want to take a moment here. The Parks and Recreation Commission organized a gigantic effort in our community to clean up our parks and parking lots around our parks. I know there were, I believe somewhere close to almost 50 volunteers came out to pull weeds, fill potholes, to clean, to basically clean up our parks. And I have to say, they look great. And I'm really, really glad of the fervent group of volunteers who came out to sweat alongside us for those 2 weekends. I want to thank in particular Megan Ruff, who was the coordinator of that effort. If there are folks who are on these meetings regularly and who are, wondering how they could be helping their community in a positive way, I think looking to these types of volunteer days is really important. Councilwoman Urbish has been working with the business community to put together a beautification committee, as well as several other volunteer committees to help our local downtown, as well as to ensure that the city and our business community are all working together and singing off the same songbook. So it would be great for members of our community to engage in those types of positive volunteer opportunities in the city. I hope you guys consider it. That flows nicely into the next thing that I need to talk about, which is Halloween. Halloween, the city of Lambertville has worked within our small COVID-19, sort of think tank, I guess, which includes myself, a member of council, Lieutenant Brown, Cindy, our construction office, as well as Public Works. We have gone into a series of serious discussions about Halloween this year, and we put out a statement last week saying that we are highly discouraging people to attend, to do any door-to-door trick-or-treating, either with your child or participating in it by handing out candy. We think that Halloween, particularly in a place like Lambertville, where people come from all over the region to trick-or-treat here, that Halloween is an attractive nuisance that could create a very serious health hazard for our residents. So this year we are not shutting down North Union Street. We will have a continued serious police presence to ensure public safety. We will also be enforcing the executive orders at the time for public gatherings. And we hope that members of the community take very seriously that we are still in a pandemic and that we should be doing everything possible to limit social interactions, create social distancing, wearing masks, using good hygiene, and making smart choices for Halloween. That being said, we have convened a small working group to try and figure out ways in which we can still create a safe and special Halloween experience for the local Lambertville kiddos. And we are working on putting that effort together over the course of the next several weeks. Does anybody from council have any questions regarding that policy? Okay. More info about what we're doing for Halloween to come shortly. Okay, with that, Council President Acero, you have an update from the Human Rights?
Yes. So the Human Rights Council recognizes that the nation generally is examining the role of police in communities and kind of reevaluating the public services and budgeting of those police services. So we have set up what we're calling a listening session. Of course, we listen at all our meetings, but we're calling this a specific listening session. Our next meeting is Monday, October 12th, starts at 7:30. We're going to have a single topic for the meeting, and the focus is going to be to receive feedback on safety and policing in Lambertville. So, feedback from the residents is vital, and we would appreciate anyone who either wants to listen or wants to tell us about their thoughts or concerns or ideas, if they would bring them to that meeting. Ultimately, the Human Rights Council is going to provide a recommendation back to the council about how we might make improvements to the services that the police provide and or other services around the city, so that bolster the police department. So Monday, October 12th, 7:30. It'll also be out on email. We have a Facebook page, the city Facebook page will show it also. So we encourage you to come and invite people that you believe have an interest in speaking on that topic.
Council President, if I can make a recommendation that you work with Cindy and our public outreach team in order to create a flyer and potentially include that in our public update that goes out every Thursday. Just
That
to
will definitely be in there.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yep, we're already on that. But Cindy, we'll check in with you on the flyers. That'd be great. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Sanders, do we have a census update?
Yes, just very briefly. So we are in what we think is the home stretch. So if you are a procrastinator, or if you know someone who's a procrastinator, and there's 48 people on this, so at least 5 of you, I think, are procrastinators. You certainly know someone who's a procrastinator, but your time to complete the census is coming to a close here. Census offices are scheduled to complete their work on September 30th. They have been working on what they call non-responsive follow-ups and are FUs since mid-July. I know they've been knocking on doors here in Lambertville. So there was a self-response rate, and then with these non-response follow-ups to the homes that had not responded, we don't have numbers specifically for Lambertville, but we believe that those are sort of in the mid-90s. I should note that the Commerce Secretary, whose name I forget right now, the U.S. Commerce Secretary had moved up the date from October 31st. Now, there's a legal challenge to that, and the federal court very soon, I was expected yesterday or today, although I didn't see it yet, was looking at that federal action to move it from the 31st to September 30th. So don't depend on an extension. Please note that it's it very well could be September 30th, and we will continue with our outreach efforts. But we are getting toward the end of our run here.
Okay. I will also take that time to say, if you're filling out your census form, fill out your ballot. Councilwoman Urbish and Councilwoman Taylor, do you have a downtown business district update?
Sure. So, I mean, I have one piece. The beautification committee is going to be getting out and doing some decoration downtown. And hopefully we'll start to see sort of fall and Halloween come alive. They're working with some of the business owners in town to coordinate, and also coordinating with some of the empty storefronts to get some artwork and things to sort of liven up any empty storefronts. Though we're very excited that a number of the retail spaces that have been empty are getting filled, which is really exciting to see, and definitely seeing, you know, more life downtown. One of our businesses has expanded to a second location downtown, which is just, it's great to see that growth happening. We will have some new banners coming up. River Signs is printing up, welcoming folks to Lambertville. Hopefully those will be there and ready to go next week. And I just want to thank the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission and Commissioner Camiotti for helping wrangle some volunteers who will put those banners up for us. It's not something that someone can just do with a ladder. We need special equipment, so we appreciate them volunteering the time and equipment to get that up, and hopefully they'll be up by next weekend, knock on wood. Councilwoman Taylor, if I'm forgetting or I'm getting the content wrong, I know a group in town is putting together Porch Fest that's coming up October 3rd, which is really exciting. It's not necessarily business specific, but I think it's just a really cool opportunity. It's been adapted from other cities like Philadelphia, getting musicians out on folks' porches around town, just to bring some life and art and music. And we're really excited to see that happening. I'm sure I'm missing some details there, so I apologize, but.
So actually, just so everybody knows here, they have a beautiful website that was already created, lambertvilleporchfest.com. If you'd like some more information, the city website and Facebook will also be sharing this because we think it's great. And again, another sort of moment of figuring out how to work within the constraints of COVID-19 to still create community in a really safe way. So I'm really appreciative of the folks who are helping manage that. And if anybody has any questions, you can go to lambertvilleporchfest.com.
And just one other thing, the parklet, the city parklet is going to be going out next week on North Union Street in front of Savor and La Chocolate Box. So look out for that. And that will be public and open to everyone.
Great. Okay. Last announcement of the evening. We have extended the number of convenience hours to ensure that all of our gardeners in town have an opportunity to get their leaf and brush out of their property. So Saturday, October 3rd from 9 to noon, Saturday, October 17th from 9 to noon, Wednesday, October 21st from 3 to 5, and Wednesday, October 28th from 3 to 5 are all open convenience hours times. We've doubled the number of hours in October. We intend to double the number of hours in April or May, depending on the weather, to ensure that folks can do their fall and spring cleanup and, not overburden the Public Works Department with leaf pickup. And so with that, we'll reopen public participation. If you have a question at this time, you can raise your hand and we'll answer it.
Janine, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
It's Janine McGregor, 161 Swan Street. I just wanted to also thank everybody for the hard work that was done with all those various cleanup efforts that have been going on. You know, like the litter and the general state of like rundown has been something I think a lot of folks have been complaining about. And so I really appreciate everyone's responsiveness on this. I guess it's probably something we might have to do on a maintenance basis, and I would like to become more involved in it. But I just want to say for now, I want to thank everybody involved, and especially Megan. But the second thing I wanted to say was it was a real pleasure listening in on this meeting tonight. Both the brevity of the meeting and the depth of the discussion are appreciated. We were able to adequately, hear the business of the city in a reasonable time frame. It was really difficult, those really long meetings. It was really difficult to stay focused. So it was really, really good to hear. There was ample opportunity for comments on agenda and also on non-agenda items like before and after the agenda. So I just thank you for addressing that, and I hope you guys appreciate it too, because you put in long hours, and hopefully you'll be getting home a little bit earlier tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Janine. I think we have Benedetta next.
Benedetta, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your question.
Hi, this is Benedetta Lambert, 57 Lincoln Avenue. I have a couple of questions about resolutions number 116 and 117. I apologize for the lateness, but I had my hand raised and was not acknowledged when these were up for discussion. You mentioned something about I'd like to clarify what the hourly rate is or was for our prior business administrator. And there seems to be a difference in the two resolutions in terms of the hourly rate and how those compared with the prior business administrator position. So
are you going to ask all of your questions, or would you like those answered in orders? Sorry.
So it's really about, I'm talking about three sets of hourly rates, okay? The hourly rate we paid Mr. Torpy, the hourly rate in resolution 116, which I've calculated to be $112.50 an hour, and the hourly rate in resolution 117, which I calculated at $93 an hour. How do those two costs compare with what we were paying an hourly rate? Do you have that information?
So I want to start by addressing the first portion of your question. And I don't know if you missed the beginning of our meeting. We've made a policy change here to only accept public hearings, public comment at the beginning and the end of the meeting, which is why you weren't acknowledged at the
okay, I did miss that. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
So the second question here is, and I believe, Cindy, I'm going to lean on you a little bit in this conversation, and we may need to follow up in a secondary, in a follow-up email to you just to ensure that for accuracy. I believe that the rate of Mr. Torpy benefit was $74 an hour. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we based the $74 an hour off of the same hourly rate as for Mr. Phelan, who's the incoming business administrator. Interim business administrator.
So if I'm sorry, are you done? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem. So I was just saying, if there is an issue with the resolution, our intention is to only pay Mr. Phelan $74 an hour, as was the exact same hourly rate as Mr. Torpy. And so you may have caught a math whoopsie daisy there.
Okay, so just to be clear, the way I got the $112 an hour for, I don't know the gentleman's name, but the Clinton guy. You take $4,500 and divide by, he's doing 10 hours a week. That's 40 hours a month, right? 10 times 4. And then you divide that into the 4,500 monthly cost. That comes out to $112.50 an hour.
So I will ensure that if there is a If there's a calculation issue here, we'll address it and fix it.
Okay.
But our intention is to pay Mr. Phelan the exact same hourly rate as Mr. Torpey.
Okay. And then I guess the same intention would apply to resolution number 117.
No, that is not correct. So we have our intention with the shared service portion of our shared service is to negotiate a total compensation package in which Flemington can pay up to $70,000 of cost. But our not to exceed for the business administrator may change depending on, right now our not to exceed, I believe, is $130,000 for that position. That may change depending on the negotiation within Flemington, ourselves, and whenever we identify an administrator that is the correct administrator for the position. So this shared service agreement does not limit us to paying the exact same hourly rate. Our goal here is to find the best business administrator for the city that is also within a not to exceed of, I believe, of $90,000 for the city.
Just to be clear, the resolution says 70,000 a year for the second resolution.
But that second resolution is that the business administrator will be, the city of Lambertville will be compensated by the borough of Flemington at the rate of $70,000 a year. What the final total that we are paying the business administrator is still in negotiation.
So
Okay.
Lambertville will pay the balance, Mayor. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. One more question about this arrangement with shared services. You've got two resources. How are we managing? How will you be managing and sort of, monitoring the workload to ensure that they're working on the things we need them working on, that there aren't any gaps? What one guy saying, oh, I thought the other guy was doing it, that kind of thing. Because it's no reflection on either candidate or either person, but those things happen. So what kind of process or controls will be in place to ensure that both of these parties understand what their work is, understand the scope of their work, and that they're, doing what we're paying them to do?
So I think that there's a slight misunderstanding here. For Rich Phelan and the business administrator in the town of Clinton is only an interim business administrator to get us through the course of the next several months while we find the right business administrator for the city. So once we have appointed a part-time business administrator as a part of the shared service agreement with Flemington, we will no longer need an interim business administrator. So those two parties won't be working together. They're operating and doing the same job. One is here in the short term to ensure that we have budget control, to ensure that projects aren't being dropped. We've had to put a pin on several grants because we have, just a lack of bandwidth in the city. That's the scope of, they have a limited scope of service, which has been agreed upon by the town of Clinton and the city of Lambertville. When we appoint a business administrator, we will terminate his contract and he will no longer be a consultant for the city of Lambertville.
Right, that makes sense. But
so then when the business administrator is then appointed, he would follow his job description and the work that's laid out in the administrative code, just as Alex did. And the work of a business administrator, then he would then be in charge of administrating the business of the city.
Right. But what I'm trying to understand is during this interim period, will these two individuals, how will they know what they're working on? How will we as the city understand what they're, what are the controls the monitoring and tracking controls that are going to be in place to make sure that we're getting the hours we're paying for, right? I mean, I'm assuming, it sounds like I don't really know, but it sounds like we're paying them to do, hourly, and we're paying them 10 hours a week, this guy 10 hours a week, regardless, right? So if he works 12 hours a week, we make out on the deal. If he works 10 out, if he works 8 hours, we lose a few, that's my assumption, is it's kind of a salary. But how do we know that this individual is giving us 10 hours of work and that he's working on the things that we need him to be working on? And it applies to both individuals. And will there be some sort of oversight to make sure that if there's no gaps between the various activities that they're working on?
Right. So the business administrator and every employee, all 55 employees in the city of Lambertville work at under my supervision. The way that the Faulkner 3 works in the city is that I manage all of the department heads. The business administrator, both the interim business administrator and ultimately our part-time long-term business administrator, serves at the pleasure of the mayor. I work closely with our city staff every day to ensure that we're getting the best work product out of every member of our team, but certainly with the business administrator, as they are, directly working on projects that are, budget related, which is a huge part of my executive role.
Okay, so the short answer is you're responsible for that, right? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
yes.
Okay, thank you.
But I do want to say here that, part of I think it's really important that we note that this is, that we have controls because I will be managing and responsible for this person. We also have controls within the shared service agreement to terminate the agreement if we don't feel that that the party is providing the service that we need.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Stephen Harris is next.
Stephen, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your question. Please unmute yourself.
Stephen Harris, 42 Perry Street. I have a question, a suggestion, and two thank yous to give to the council. The first is
Stephen, it's kind of hard to hear you. Can you get a little bit closer to the microphone?
Oh, I don't. Yeah, I'm using a different set. Can you hear me now?
It's a little bit better.
All right, I'll talk louder. Question I have. The first is, when does the Clinton Street project repaving take place? And with that, a suggestion would be to postpone the street sweeping for the affected streets during that process of Perry Street.
So I believe you're talking about the George Street paving process.
I'm sorry, yeah, George Street. I should
Okay.
know.
We
It's
paved
right
Clinton
outside,
Street.
It's right outside my door.
One of the only streets we've been able to pave since I
Yeah,
become
yeah.
the mayor. Okay, George
Yeah,
Street.
I
So
don't care about Clinton. Yeah.
So as a part of the pre-construction agreement, that street, while it's being milled and paved, will be swept with a wet sweeper at the end of every day.
No, I'm sorry. But but during the repaving process, the other streets will be affected because the cars will be trying to swap. You'll be parking on our streets, and So I was just suggesting that the street sweepers be postponed just during the period of that repaving process.
I see. I will consider it. I'm not prepared at this time to be able to answer that, but I will have a conversation with Lester about it and follow up with you.
Okay. And the thank yous. I wanted to thank Councilman Sanders for his partnership with the census. As you know, I was contracted with Hunterdon County, and we really did good. We unfortunately fell a little bit behind Morris County, but we're hoping to zoom back. But really, our results are very good, and I appreciate his partnership. And secondly, I want to just publicly acknowledge that the partnership with Councilman Urbish and Councilman Taylor with the business community and the Chamber of Commerce has been outstanding. So I really appreciate that. And that's all.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
Paul Gorecki is next.
Paul, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question. Paul, please unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. It's Paul Gorecki, 87 South Franklin Street. Just wanted to mention there's an abandoned property at the southeast intersection of South Franklin Street and Swan Street. The consensus after talking to a few of the neighbors in the neighborhood is the property is a bit of an eyesore. It's visible from Route 29. It's been empty and boarded up on the first floor for over a year. There's noticeable cracks in the exterior brick facade. And I wasn't part of the meeting earlier, but it's been texted that someone else residing closer to the property of concern mentioned that there was activity in the home. Now, I'm not sure what the connotation of activity in the home means, but I can only assume it's not good. Other than this evening, has the property been brought to the attention of the council, and can anything be done to address or improve the appearance of the property?
So the answer is that yes, this property has been brought to the attention of the council before, actually very recently. We followed up at that time with Ken, our construction official, with concerns about boarded up windows, holes in the roof. I know that our construction official went and looked at the property and said that he did not see at this time any concerning structural damage, which is for structural concerns. I will, though, raise this back to him at our weekly meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm sure the neighbors would as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Mayor, just a note, maybe we could have Lieutenant Brown just kind of keep an extra eye out. It sounds like might not be some great activity happening there.
Happy to flag it for Lieutenant Brown as well.
Paul, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
Paul Stevens, 39 Corey. I just wanted to take the opportunity, first off, I want to thank you for trying to figure out a way to make the meetings shorter, okay? But I would like to provide some feedback on this present arrangement, and in particular, not taking comments after the council has discussed the resolution that's coming up to a vote. I typically wouldn't comment on something before hearing what you have to say, because you might answer the questions I have, which saves time, or also, frankly, it might generate some questions regarding that resolution. But then by not being able to comment until the end of the night, the resolution, the ordinance, whatever is already passed. So why comment at all? You know, I feel like I've lost the ability to participate in a constructive manner. And that's me personally. I admitted it might work. This setup might work for others better than the other one. But I just urge you to consider taking public comments after you have commented on something that's coming up to a vote, and not having them in the beginning. Okay, put those comments, say if it's on a resolution or something on the agenda, please wait until that time. Thank you. That's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Paul. I will note here that, and then Councilwoman Taylor, I see your hand. I will note here that this was there was a significant policy change when I came into office to have comment available regardless of statutory obligation before every council action. That was something that I implemented because I agree with you. I think it's important for people to hear the council deliberate before they make comments, and people should come in with an open mind to the work of the council, hear us deliberate, and then make comments on that deliberation. We have heard from a lot of residents that 4-hour marathon meetings are keeping them from being able to participate. And this is another way that we're experimenting to try and do that. It's not perfect. I agree with you. I have serious concerns about it, but we are giving it a shot. So Councilwoman Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Stevens, I understand your concern, but I don't think it is a sustainable process for us to take public comment after every single item on our agendas. It's not a sustainable process for us to have 4 and 5 hour meetings. And so, I would urge every member of the public to work with us as we test this new option. Make your questions or, provide your questions or comments to agenda items in the first public comment session that we make available. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think we're all committed to getting the most public input as possible, but we have to also be mindful of everybody's time.
Well, the one thing I would comment on is that part of the reason that things have been running as long as they have are that there have been some very contentious agenda items in the past, okay? And if you're going to open it up to public comments, you should be prepared to hear those public comments,
Well, Paul, I agree with you. And we have a slew of relatively contentious action items as a part of our affordable housing agreement over the course of the next several months. And I also agree with Councilwoman Taylor that it's, and some of the sentiments from members of the public that it's keeping them from being able to participate in the public process, 4 or 5 hour marathon meetings. So we're going to keep trying to tinker with this to get this to, the right balance.
Yep. Okay.
I believe Sue Bell's next.
Sue, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your question.
Sue Bell, 407 Surgeon Drive. I just had one quick question, but I wanted to say that one of the reasons we have had a lot of contentious discussions and a lot of big things going on in the city, but one of the challenges is exactly what we're doing right now, which is COVID. We had a lot of participation before COVID, so it's just an unusual time. So nothing's perfect. I wanted to ask a question. Did you say you're jumping the business administrator annual salary from 120,000 to up to 200,000 with 70,000 up to 70,000 being paid? I just wanted a clarification.
No, I did not say that.
Okay, what is it? Because if Flemington's I know Flemington's getting 15 hours a week, Lambertville's getting 25. I will say I have concerns with the amount of construction that's going to go on in Flemington with their with the Jack Cuss property, that it would be difficult for 15 hours a week because they have a lot that's going to happen there soon. But what is the salary? Because I know I wasn't at the meeting earlier, and I know that you were researching what it was going to be. So because I think I just wanted some clarification.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were done.
You didn't.
Okay. So the answer is we haven't finalized the total salary of the business administrator. We are in the process of the headhunting right now. We're looking for who is the right fit, and then, as in most job applications, we will negotiate with that person. Flemington is paying up to $70,000, and then we will pay the remainder. I see no reality where we would ever pay $130,000, which was the total of our not to exceed right now, for fewer hours than 40 hours a week. So we are in the process of finding that business administrator and negotiating their total value based on their work experience and fit for the community. And we'll have a final number for that when we find that person.
Because you said something about up to 130 or something.
That's the not to exceed of the current business administrator, the full-time business administrator position in the city.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Matt Hansen, 105 Douglas Street. I wanted to find out if there was a update on the police movement project, the affordable housing thing, if there's any updated numbers, even that are preliminary, what that's going to cost the city, if there's anything.
No, there is no update.
So we still don't know, as we get closer to the date that we have to agree to this and make things happen, we still don't know what's going to cost.
Well, there is no agreement or not agreement to this. This was a negotiated agreement with Fair Share Housing and with the court. This has already been agreed to by the city.
What I mean is that we have to agree to this, but we still don't know what it's going to cost in the future. Like, we still don't know. And the date that we have to make this all happen is getting closer and closer. And I've heard from other council members that we had a lot of time to figure this out. But now we're getting closer to the date and we don't know the costs that it is still.
What date are you referring to?
Well, I believe we have to have it by December 31st. We have to have something in line, or
No,
is
that's
it
not correct.
Okay, so by May, then we have to May 2021.
May 2021, we have to identify a developer.
Yes.
Okay, so we will at that point have a redevelopment agreement and a developer, but that doesn't mean that we can't also negotiate a contingency for maintaining the police property as a part of the pre-construction and development timeline. There is no looming date. Certainly it is not December 31st. And the city has made a commitment, which you have praised on multiple council meetings, to have the community advisory team be an integral part of this planning process. They are in stage 1 of that planning process now, which is getting community input on design and design vetting to ensure that the values of the community are put into the redevelopment agreement, which is the building of that redevelopment plan is stage 1, which will be done by December 31st. Until the community advisory team can move to phase 2, where we're talking about where to place the police department and our other city facility, our total facility makeup, it would be inappropriate for me to say at this time we know exactly what that costs, because it would mean that I had some plan that was not vetted by our community advisory team, which we have offered to do. In May of this year, I made a commitment to our community to slow down and to make sure that we had as much community input as possible. And I have worked diligently every day to try and do that. This is a good time to plug that our community vetting, design vetting workshop is this Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m. And there's information on lambertville.com or lambertvillenj.org/community advisory team, or CAT. So I feel very confident in not having those answers right now, because it is exactly what we told the public that we would do.
Which I respect. All of that is true, except for the fact that I do not fully believe that moving the police station is the best option still. I believe that the CAT is a great option, but the CAT is looking at design elements for this site, but we don't know the cost of moving this site still. So we still don't know if it's going to cost $10 or $10 million. We don't know any numbers, supposedly, is what I'm hearing. So we don't know the cost of this and what the taxpayers will have to pay to change the police station site once or twice. So that's what my only concern is this. What does that cost? So the CAT is moving forward with their plans, which is great. I filled out the CAT survey twice, the first one, the second one on design vets and all the different things they're looking at to move the site, and I understand that. But I just don't understand, we don't know what it's going to cost still to move the police station. And that's just my concern. That's all. I don't mean to be, that's my concerns. We don't know what it's going to cost. And I hate unhidden costs. So it's, one day it could come up, it's $10 or $10 million. We don't know. And there's been given no numbers of that. That's if it was an estimate, okay, then give an estimate, but there's no estimates even.
Well, as many members of the organization that you work with have noted before, that they don't appreciate estimates or sort of bold
Sorry, I don't
ideas.
But don't accuse me of working with the organization. I'm speaking as a private resident.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
I don't know what you mean by that. So
totally fair. I have been told by members of the community that providing estimates was not helpful, and that those estimates were handily torn apart So I have done exactly what I have committed to do here, which is to do this in phases, to provide the community with ample time to provide their comments, and to make sure that as we move forward in any long-term structural changes to the city, that we do that in a way that is not just the council and myself making those decisions, but a community advisory team being deeply involved with that as well.
And I appreciate that, and I really do. My concern is what the cost of this will be, and
We
no one
heard your
knows.
concerns.
Yeah, so no one knows, like, and that's what I wish we all knew, like what the preliminary cost may be. So that's, I think, my biggest concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Clinton resident, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your question.
This is Lily Chen, 17 Clinton Street. I have a question, and I'm going back to the resolution 109. And I guess, I have the same comment as Paul Stevens earlier. I missed the fact that you weren't going to discuss these resolutions, so I can understand why you were voting the way you did. But I have a question as far as how did you come up with this decision to cancel the painting of the library? Is it because lack of funding, or because the administration feels that you are going to move in the direction of lead abatement versus painting, which is normally the process today? Can you just give me an idea of why this decision was made after several years? This was on the ticket for repainting the library?
Certainly. So the initial bid and the concept for painting the library really began in earnest in 2017. In 2018, there was a bond, let me see here. There was a bond passed and funded for the painting of that building. The bid came back with a pretty significant change order that was exceeded 20% of the total cost of the bid. At that point, we feel that we couldn't produce a bid that was both responsive and responsible, that functionally the project had changed, and so we are canceling this particular bond because the bid itself is no longer within the scope of what the actual project is. Over the course of my first quarter as mayor, I worked directly with folks from the Department of Community Affairs, as well as our city architect, to figure out sort of where this issue stems from. We do have to address the lead contamination in the library, or on the library's paint surface. That is a responsibility of the city because we own that property. Unfortunately, this particular bond does not suffice to allow us to do that. We have to go back out to bid.
Are you going back out to bid for another paint job, or are you going back out to bid for late abatement? What are you going back out for?
So at this time, we're working directly with the Lambertville Library Board. We are already starting to build out our capital improvement plan for 2021. This is one of the things that we are going to be working on between now and the end of October, to put together the capital requests from all of the committees, commissions, and boards in town. And we're going to let the library board guide us in what they need in order for us to address the serious issues and safety concerns at the library, lead being only one of them.
So the library board is going to make the decision whether they would go down the route of lead abatement versus encasement?
Ultimately, that is a decision that we have to make with the Department of Local Government Services and the Department of Community Affairs. We are simply working with the library to work out what their capital improvement plan is going to be. And then we will follow the letter of the law to ensure that we are doing exactly what we need to do to keep Lambertville residents and specifically our children safe.
Okay. Will there somebody that's going to be on that board that represents the Environmental Commission or understanding of the environmental impact if you were to not, do the normal process? Instead, you're going down the route of lead abatement, which is not recommended from all the studies that's been out there. I mean, I'm just wondering,
ultimately, the question
why
of
not
lead
go
abatement
for
has
another
to come from
bid
the
on
state.
painting?
Ultimately, the question of whether or not we have to encase or abate the lead is entirely based on the state. We have to follow the letter of the law when it comes to safety issues like this. We are simply going to be working with this is not an insular to Lambertville. Old buildings have lead paint. This is something that the state we're going to be working closely with on the state.
So you're working with DCA when you're saying the state?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Demo, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Colleen Riley, 23 Perry Street. I just want to follow up with Mr. Hansen's comment regarding the police station. I also participated in the surveys, one a couple of weeks ago and one today, and I will be participating in the meeting on Saturday. But I do have to tell you, I'm a little confused, and I mentioned this when I completed the survey. Mayor, I thought in one of the meetings from a few months ago, you had talked about creating the CAT team to get the pulse of the town, to see how they felt about selling the police station. And I supported that. I thought that was a great idea. When I got the survey, nowhere on the survey did it ask if I was supportive of selling the police station, how I felt about selling the police station. And now this most recent survey is about the architecture, the design, and I have to tell you, I was very confused because I thought the whole purpose of the CAT team was to get the pulse of the community. Can you just give me some clarity on that, please?
Certainly, and I really appreciate this question because it's a really important one. Unfortunately, the way in which the state of New Jersey has decided to implement affordable housing policy is through the courts, which means that the city of Lambertville was not able to, when we were considering changing our initial fair share housing settlement agreement from 2018, we were not able to do things like go out to the community and garner response about what the change in that plan was going to be. Now, our initial plan in 2018 would have cost the city millions of dollars. We know that there is a specific number that, unfortunately, because we are in active litigation, we are not allowed to tell the public. But there is an amount, it was many millions of dollars, and that's what it would have cost to condemn Academy Hill, which was the initial plan. So we knew that it was going to cost the city millions of dollars. We knew that we couldn't afford that. And so we decided to make a change in our affordable housing plan. Unfortunately, because this is run through the courts and by a third-party activist organization called Fair Share Housing, we were not allowed to share with the community what our thoughts were when we were negotiating with other private property owners and where and how we were going to sort of solve for our affordable housing obligation in this particular round. So by the time that the community had heard and we were allowed to share with the community what our affordable housing plan was, It was already decided. That is the form and function by which every municipality has to make those decisions. So while I would have loved to have the community advisory team advising our decision making in 2016, 2017, and 2018 as we were leading up to this plan, unfortunately, the way in which the affordable housing plan works in the state of New Jersey, that just wasn't possible. So this is the plan. We are selling the police station. There is no alternative there. We are moving forward with that. What we can do is provide an opportunity for the council, for the public, and the community advisory team to drive the next stages of that plan.
Okay, so this, I guess I must have missed a meeting. I apologize. I wasn't aware that it was a final decision made, and I assumed that the CAT team was gathering information so that you could get the pulse of the town. But we're not doing that anymore. So now the CAT team is just looking for our input in terms of aesthetics. Is that correct?
Yes, it's more than aesthetics, but that's the general idea that, I am handcuffed by the way in which this process works throughout the state. I don't think that this is the best way to build integrated affordable housing into any community, but it is the way that the city of Lambertville and other municipalities in the state have to operate. I would recommend, you did not miss a meeting. We've been in this conversation now for about 12 months. I would recommend we have a really comprehensive FAQ document on our affordable housing site on the website that goes through the whole timeline that I would recommend. And Councilwoman Urbish, I'll call on you next. I would also, the community advisory team did a series of frequently asked questions in which we explained this as well. Councilwoman Urbish?
Yeah, I would just also add, we did a teach-in webinar on affordable housing and affordable housing specifically in Lambertville that was recorded, which is also up on the website, which gets to some of these questions and frankly challenges with how the system works.
Well, it wasn't so much the affordable housing, and I attended most of the meetings. It was the selling of the police site that I thought you had said I will create a CAT team to get the pulse of the town regarding selling the police station. And I guess that's where the disconnect was for me, because I didn't get any questionnaire asking about the selling of the police station. It was more regarding how it would look. And but anyway, you've clarified. Thank you.
And I'm just going to, oh, I'm sorry, I can't share my screen right now. I'm happy to share my screen at another time. The CAT charge, I can understand sort of if there was a miscommunication or a misunderstanding here of sort of where we are in the process of identifying our affordable housing sites. The police station is one of the sites in which we are fulfilling our affordable housing obligation. We're not just selling it, we are selling it as a part of our affordable housing agreement. And the community advisory team is really there to develop and understand what the community wants within that space. It's not just aesthetics. We were also talking about density, height, mapping.
I completed the survey. I just, I guess it was just a disconnect. I didn't realize that we were not having any input into whether it was being sold, but you've clarified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify too, Mayor, the community will have input through the community advisory team on sort of the broader city facilities questions.
100%, yes.
Including where the new police site will be.
That's correct. We have a couple of folks who have already spoken. So Tina, I'm gonna ask you to call on Sandy, Hannah, and then Gina, and then Matt, and then Sue.
Sure. Sandy, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
Hi, Sandy Hanna, 249 South Franklin Street. Good evening. I just have a question. Is there any discussion about whether the property is going to need remediation where the police station is, as far as any environmental issues? Has that been addressed? And when it is addressed, I know at one point it was discussed that the developer would have to pick up that charges, but from what I understand, we citizens would have to pick up the charges if there was a requirement for remediation. Just asking that question.
Sandy, thank you. That's a great question. There is an excellent video on the Community Advisory Team's website where Vince Mazzei, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Land Use, really tackles a lot of these frequently asked questions that we're getting about environmental damage and remediation. So I recommend that you go and check that out. I found it to be really, really helpful and clear. So I think that he's certainly, I would argue, the best person to answer that question, as he's literally this state's land use guy. But the answer here is that the Community Advisory Team is debating whether or not to advise the council to do a phase 1 study. They are in communication on that now, and we're going to be discussing that at our October 4th meeting. In previous meetings that we've had, I believe in our, I want to say it was our May council meeting, Councilwoman Taylor in particular had some concerns about the city taking on any of the studies or developer costs that normally would be charged, charged to the developer. I would agree with her. We are in the position now, because we have control over this site, to require that the developer take on those costs, and I think that they should. We are here to be the stewards of the public dollar, and we are not interested in taking on unnecessary costs for this building.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gina, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Hi, this is Gina Fischetti, 116 Clinton Street. I was just calling because I wanted to talk a little bit about the Clausen site, which I know, as I'm sure all of you do, was listed for sale over the past couple weeks. So pretty sure the zoning on this site is still townhomes. So it's an 8-acre site, which is, right now we all know what it's used for, but the underlying zoning on it allows townhomes to be developed. This site was previously included in the town's affordable housing plan, and it was removed and replaced with the police site last year, or this year actually. So I'm just wondering, if this site is purchased by a developer and ultimately developed with townhomes over the 8 acres, which is entirely possible and permissible with the underlying zoning as it is now, will affordable housing be required on the site? And if the answer is no, it's my understanding that the reason why the site was removed to begin with was because it was determined to be inappropriate to have affordable housing on a historic site. I guess my question is, why would it be appropriate or permissible to allow high density townhouse development on that site and say no affordable units are required, when ultimately what would end up happening would be just market rate high-end townhouse development on the site and no affordables?
I'm not really up to speed on this issue. I know it was with the planning board, so I just want to.
Do you mind if I snag in here? I have an answer for this question.
Thank you.
So Gina, right now, the overlying zoning is actually for single family units, not attached townhomes. The total density on those family units is the underlining zoning for our single family unit zoning in residential areas. The Clausen site is 8.85 acres. The original overlay for that site was going to permit 6 units per acre, so a total of 53 units. If they were for sale, they would have 11 affordable units as a set aside. If they were for rent, they would have been 8 affordable. The issue of why that property was deemed inappropriate was not because it was inappropriate for any development at all, nor was it deemed inappropriate because it was inappropriate for affordable development. I think I've been very clear that we should be producing as many affordable units as possible, and I've been an advocate for affordable housing in our community. The issue was actually a sentiment from the community writ large in our November 2018 meeting that building at the correct density on that site would ruin, with that 53 unit density, would ruin the historic value of Washington's headquarters. And Karen Ogren made an impassioned speech to the council that the community should actually freeze up to 2.5 acres of the Clausen's property and move that down to 6.2 acres or 6.25 acres of developable land. Now that, in my opinion, was outside of the bounds of what the council could reasonably do, right? To restrict private property without the consent of the property owner from developing or selling that developable land because of its historic value. You know, that's in my eyes, that was stealing property from the Clausens, and that subdivision would have actually increased their tax rate by a pretty significant amount. So I stand by the notion that we should not have moved forward on the Historic Preservation Commission and the Historic Preservation Society's recommendation to subdivide their property. It was also made clear by the hundreds of people who showed to that meeting that, although turned out not to be our most contentious affordable housing meeting, that developing at that rate of density, almost 60 units on that property, would change the character of our community, and that it was unacceptable. And so while I would agree with you that some affordable housing should be a part of a development on that site, if they build as of right single family units, then that's the zoning as it stands right now. And I think this is the right decision for the council to make. Councilwoman Taylor.
There is an overlay district on the residential low density zoning district that allows for semi-detached dwellings and townhouse dwellings. So there are there restrictions that I'm not aware of on how that overlay district can be utilized?
I would have to, I wasn't planning on getting into this sort of detail on the Clausen site this evening. I may have to ask our planner to come to our next hearing in order to be able to answer that better. I don't want to get myself in a
totally fine. Totally fine.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the answer to that. And then also I'd be curious to know what the permissible density is for single family.
You know what? I think I have that. I'm not gonna.
I have it open here. It's sorry, it's 1.3. I just had it. It's.
I know I've got it
it's,
somewhere.
It's large lot zoning. It's like 1.3, between 1 and 1.3 acres or something like that. I just had it up, but it's large lot zoning.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Between 1.3 units per acre and 3 acres per unit. It's a little weird language, but.
Thank you, Councilwoman Taylor, for being a little quicker on the draw there.
Just in the spirit of trying to keep these meetings and the back and forth brief, I would suggest that if we've got follow-up information that we can pull that together for the next meeting.
Fair's fair. Can we get the next question?
Yes. Sue, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Sue Bell, 407 Surgeon Drive. I just wanted to follow up on the lady that had said she was confused by the CAT survey and what the intention of it was. I think the confusion may have come from the way the information was reported bear with me, because when I heard Sarah say only 50 people on the survey commented they didn't want the police department there, there was not a question in the survey that said that. There was a section that said additional comments. And I think that I find the CAT surveys actually not what I thought they would be. And the one with all the windows tonight and everything, like part of that's beyond, like, I don't know. So I just want to say that I did have a little bit of a problem with the way the survey was presented, because those were not questions that were asked. Specifically, that question was not asked, you know, and I think we need to be careful when we present surveys to not say 50, it should have been presented that 50 people in the additional comments said they didn't want the police department, not that only 50 people said they didn't want the police department. So I just want to say, in mindful speech matters, and I think it creates some confusion. And that's all I'm saying. It's not intentionally being mean.
I appreciate that too. I don't feel that you were intentionally being mean, but I appreciate the clarification nonetheless. I will note here that I'm actually looking at the CAT presentation, and it specifically says that these were in the additional comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Matthew, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your question.
Matthew Hansen, 105 Douglas Street. So I just want to start the whole conversation with that. I support affordable housing. I know several residents and people that would love to have more affordable housing in town. So I truly think this is a great thing. And I just think that the public conversation is so important.
Hear, hear.
My question, I have 3 questions. First is, I don't know if you want me to ask them all at once or if you want me to go one by one, but
all at once is fine.
So my first thing is that it was said that multiple millions of dollars will be spent on the previous agreement. Do we know how many millions or non-millions of dollars will be spent on this agreement now with moving the police station? And the second question then is, the Clausen property, as was brought up, is now for sale, which was in the previous agreement, but now it's for sale. And how does that interact with this agreement now that we exited that agreement? So I just don't understand why we exited that agreement when now this, and this is just me trying to understand more. So sorry, I'm trying to understand more why we exited that agreement. If I understand the historical commission and all that, you know, and whatever, but if there was the ability to do affordable housing there, why aren't we proceeding with that agreement? So those are my 2 questions, I would say.
Mayor, can I take a stab at this? I feel like that these might have already been answered in previous discussion. I mean, I feel like we answered your question about the not having an exact number on moving the police site yet. And then in terms of the cost solely just to take ownership and condemn the site, we can't provide more explicit details because it's a court settlement. And we haven't been allowed to explain that. And then, you know, in terms of the Clausen site, I mean, I think that the mayor kind of like went over some of the history of it and the, you know, really significant pushback that we got from the community. I wasn't on council at the time, but, you know, just hearing her explain it, I feel like we may have answered those questions. If there's additional details, I mean, maybe we could even try to talk a little bit offline so I have a fuller understanding of what it is you're looking for, and maybe we can try to pull some of that together in the meantime.
Sure, and I like that, and we can connect, but I just, it was, the mayor had said earlier, it was multi-millions of dollars to do what we did previously, but we don't know what the police site will cost, and that's just, we're entering into something we don't know. So I guess that's my concern, is it may be the same cost, and we had an agreement until 2025 to possibly make this happen, but now we re-entered into something new where we have to sell a police station, and the taxpayers will have to absorb this cost of moving the police station, possibly.
I want to be very clear here. You're saying the taxpayers may have to absorb some cost, and I want to be really clear on top of that, that the previous agreement was a guaranteed multi-million-dollar boondoggle, and this new agreement would require us to sell a piece of property. And often when you sell a piece of property, there's a profit. And that profit would then go to the replacement of the police department. Now, I am not saying that we have guaranteed that there will be no cost, long-term cost to the taxpayers, but I can say that the 2018 agreement would have cost the city millions of dollars, and that is why we moved away from it.
But you can't guarantee that moving the police station will be $1 million or not.
So Matt, I think maybe a productive use of time at this point is if you want to connect with me, I can try to zero in on some of the questions at least that we can answer at this time. And in terms of the future plans for city facilities, that's obviously an ongoing process with the CAT. So.
And I'll email you tomorrow. My concern is always that we don't know what the cost is. We're doing something.
I totally hear you.
We've heard you.
It concerns me because it could be millions of dollars to move a police station because of the requirements for cells and requirements for security and all this stuff. So I just worry we're entering something where it's like, it may cost us more in the end.
Yeah, I think that there's just a lot of sort of open questions out there. And I think a lot of them we're really able to answer. I know we can touch base with Lieutenant Brown in the police department just to have a clear understanding of, what is statutorily required, what the city would need to do, just to make it a little bit clearer, because I think that there's sort of a lot of unknowns out there right now. And sometimes that can seem a little overwhelming because it's a lot of unanswered questions, but I do think that we can answer some of them and we can do a better job of making that clear. So maybe you and I can just link up and go through some of them, and I can figure out what we can answer now and what is sort of wrapped up in the ongoing CAT process.
I appreciate it. I'll email you tomorrow. And again, I emailed you, but I'll say publicly, it was wonderful what you did with the Then and Now exhibit with the Lambertville Historical Society. That exhibit, if anyone's on the call still, go do it right now. The walking tour is amazing. It's so much history of Lambertville and it's amazing. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. And I forwarded your comments on. I know the folks at the Historical Society appreciated it. So thank you.
Yep.
So I just want to say we're wrapping up here, guys. If you're still on the call Saturday from 12 to 2 p.m., we are having a free flu clinic. The Hunterdon Healthcare Society has agreed to provide free flu shots for everybody in the city of Lambertville who wants one. It is so important, and I cannot stress this enough, for the public safety of our community that everyone get their flu shot this year. You don't have to do it through us. We're just trying to make it convenient, but please, please, please get your flu shot. It is vitally important to keep rates of flu and flu-borne illness down in hospitals so that they can continue to address the COVID-19 issue. So thank you so much. Please get your flu shot. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, guys.